Hello friends, we are on our way to our San Francisco adventure, which is really a reader trip, which is supposed to be my birthday. But we are heading out to Hollywood Burbank Airport, which used to be called Bob Hope Airport, which is really the Burbank Airport.
Which used to be called the Lockheed Airport.
Which used to be called the, yeah. Okay, so I thought it would be fun for Robert to tell you a few adventures that he's had about the Burbank Airport, because he lived literally how
under the flight path.
Under the flight path. So tell us a little bit about what you remember living under the flight path.
First, you know, today truant kids use green lasers to interfere with flight paths, which is a felony, kids. Don't do it. But when we were young, we had kites, and we lived directly under the flight path for the landing of the planes. And what we would do is we would put kites up, and we would get 2 or 3 or 4 spools of string and get them up really high. But we would put tinfoil, we would line the kites with tinfoil so they would show up on the radar at Burbank Airport. And, you know, when the people in the tower would see this blip, they would look out there like, what's that strange thing in the flight path just hanging out there? And they would see it was a kite. And then they got on these really big loudspeakers. Clearly they had binoculars, and they would say, you know, hey, you kids, get that kite out of the flight path. And so we would let go of the string and run back to our homes and hide under our beds until we thought it was safe to come out. I have 2 really vivid memories of events at the Lockheed Airport. One was we watched the control tower burn down. We saw the smoke. My dad put us in his truck, drove us over there, and we just watched it burn. So that was interesting. And then one of my first jobs was I was in grammar school, and I sold papers, the afternoon paper.
Oh, yeah.
Herald Examiner, the Los Angeles Times, and the green sheet.
Valley green sheet.
The Valley green sheet.
Yeah.
And what I would do is after class, I would ride my bike to somebody's house, pick up a bunch of papers, balance them on the handlebars of my Stingray bike, drive to one of the entrances at Lockheed Airport. Had to be there by 3:30 p.m. when the whistle went off, and people streamed out of there for 5 or 10 minutes. And I would stand out front and just say, "Paper, mister, paper, mister." And, you know, they went like hotcakes, and then it was done. And then I would put the remainders back on my bike, and I would drive back to the place with an apron full of nickels and dimes. And then the guy would split up the money, and I forgot how much money, but it was big money back then. I mean,
Yeah.
I might have made, you know, $1 a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And I should say right now we're going under some railroad tracks by the airport. I'll tell you another story about that in a minute. So I just want to tell you a couple of more memories. One is when I was about 5 or 6, my mother, who was afraid of flying, decided that she didn't want her children to be afraid of flying. So PSA or TWA, one of those airlines, ran a promotion out of Hollywood Burbank Airport, and for a nickel a pound, they would take kids up on a 10-minute flight on a jet. It was a big deal that it was a jet. And so I don't remember how much it cost, but it was, you know, at a nickel a pound, maybe I weighed, you know, 40 pounds at the time, 50 pounds. So it was enough for my mom to be able to afford for me and at least my older brother. I don't remember whether my younger brother came, And we took off. We flew just over to the far end of the valley. We saw our home. We turned around and came back. So we were up in the air for about...
Wait, hold on. Sorry, we got interrupted by a plane at the airport.
So we were up in the air for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but it was my first airplane ride of hundreds or thousands of airplane rides.
Well, hold on. Let's say, were you a million miler? What were you?
Oh, God. I was a million miler on a couple of different airlines.
Because
United, American.
Yeah, because of your law.
Global Services. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
During my practice, I would get up on Monday morning, drive to the airport, fly to the East Coast, come back on Friday evening, and then repeat. So I was in the air every week for decades. So I want to tell you two more stories. One, I was born in 1956, and during the 1956 presidential election, Dwight Eisenhower landed at the Lockheed Airport on a campaign stop. And my mom brought me to watch Eisenhower disembark from the plane. And so a reporter, seeing a mom with an infant in her arms, interviewed her, and then there was a little snippet in the local Valley newspaper that said that Robert Hubble was the youngest person to greet Dwight Eisenhower when he arrived at the Lockheed Airport on a campaign stop. So the final story is when we were kids, there are railroad tracks that go along the south end of the airport. And we used to come out to the railroad tracks and we would put pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and if we were feeling really rich, $50 on the railroad tracks and wait for the trains to come by and flatten them. And, you know, I don't know why we did that. It was...
Because that's what kids do.
That's what kids do. Anyway, one day we were out there, up to no good, smashing pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and a maintenance worker for the railroad saw us, and he came over and he said, "Hey kids, what are you doing?" And we thought we were so smart. We told him we worked for the railroad. You know, we might have been 6 or 7. And he said, "Oh yeah, who's your supervisor?" So we figured the gig was up because we didn't know whose name to give. So we just ran home, got on our bikes and drove away. So such was the life of crime when you were 6 years old in the San Fernando Valley.